Hey everybody, welcome back to Watch Trading Academy, and today with me is Alex Smith, one of our latest students who has crossed now the $250,000 line, meaning he has now made over $250,000, not today trading watches, but in a rolling 12 months just recently. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you, thank you.
You know, it's amazing because first off, I just discovered you're half Persian, which I thought that was pretty crazy.
Yep.
So that's pretty incredible. The second thing that I discovered today is that you literally got your 100K club and 250K club very close to each other. So
Yep.
I didn't even know that because I was like, why do I have two trophies for him? So let me ask you this. You started trading watches when?
I bought my first watch in November 22, sold it in January 23.
Oh, bro, November 22 is like less than 2 years away.
Yep. And that was my first purchase.
Okay,
Like, I didn't even sell it.
Did you know much about watches before you joined Watch Trading Academy?
No, I mean, I knew like Breitling and Rolex.
Like
That's
you
pretty
knew
much
about
it.
them, or you knew the watch?
I knew about them.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about the models.
So how did you even discover Watch Trading Academy? What happened?
Through Exotic Car Hacks.
Oh, you were an Exotic Car Hacks member, so we're talking about
Yep.
hacking cars and stuff?
Yep.
Because you're a car fanatic. I know
Yep.
you have 3 exotics now, right?
Yep.
Using the strategy, which is pretty cool. So this is a watch trading show, so we're not going to talk cars, but he has 3 exotics, which he got using the strategies, and then I believe that's how you basically found Watch Trading Academy.
Yep, exactly.
So what enticed you to want to trade watches, though?
Well, first I found the value in ECH, and then I saw that Watch Trading Academy was part of the same platform. So I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. Like, why not? It's a little side hustle. But what really enticed me was I was just kind of getting sick of the corporate life and doing something that I didn't really care about.
What'd you do? What were you doing?
I was in the IT industry, and I worked in IT sales and did a lot of traveling, like to client sites and
That must
all
be
kind of
boring as
stuff.
shit.
It's so boring, and my client sites
Terrible,
were
right? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I went to like Alabama and stuff, like not even anywhere cool. So yeah,
That's terrible. I feel bad for you. Just hearing that.
Yeah. But
What
Yeah.
was that like? You were traveling all the time for this, or like once in a while?
a decent amount, not all the time, but more than I wanted to. And when you travel a lot and it's something that you don't want to do, it sucks. Yeah.
Okay, so you were traveling, doing this shitty 9 to 5, you hate it, but it paid the bills.
It did.
It was a 6-figure job, right?
Yep.
If I remember from what I heard your stories. Okay, so you're doing that, you discover watches. How long did it take you to take watch trading seriously when you were like, holy shit, this is real? Like, this isn't a joke.
Yeah, it took about a year for me to say, okay, I'm gonna go through the course and I want to like change my life essentially. I'm sure a lot of people can relate, but sometimes you just get to the point in what you're doing and you're not happy and you need to make a change. And luckily, Watch Trading Academy was right there. So
What was the motivating factor to do that? Because you've been at your job for a while. It's not like you're what, like 30 years old now?
yeah, I was in the industry for 10 years.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, I just got a job, I hate it, right? Like,
yeah,
this was
yeah.
real.
Oh yeah.
So what was that trigger point that was like, I want change, fuck this job?
Yeah, I mean, so I used to work back in high school and part of college, I used to work at a collector car dealership and I loved it. And I pretty much traded away doing something I loved for what, people are just regularly conditioned to do, which is, get a standard job to support income and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, I just kind of like reached a breaking point, honestly. And I was like, I need to make a change. And the fact that watches were so relatable to cars, it was a no-brainer. Like, before Watch Trading Academy, I even hit up my old boss from high school and asked, hey, what can I do to get back into the car world? And really, he said, well, you kind of have to start at the bottom again. And I was like, well, I can't just give up this job that's making me like, 200 grand a year to, be a car salesman at Kia. So, that kind of sucked. And then, that's kind of where Watch Trading Academy fit in.
What was the first watch you bought yourself when you got into Watch Trading Academy?
It was an Omega Speedmaster Chronoscope.
How much you spend?
About $5,500.
What'd you make?
Made about $600 on it.
Okay, so like 10%.
Yep.
Was there an aha moment at that point, or was it later where you...
Yeah, well, it took me a couple months to sell it. But when I sold it, I also bought 2 other Breitlings one on Poshmark and another on eBay. and I sold them all 3 of them within the same 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, like.
So it took a while to sell your first watch, and then
Yep.
after that, it kind of trickled in.
Exactly. So like once that happened, I was like, yeah, I have no doubt that I'm gonna be able to do this, and my goal is to, make something out of it and get out of,
Okay.
my 9 to 5.
So how long did it take from the time you made that commitment to the time you got out of your job?
1 year.
So like around the 1 year anniversary, you basically got out of your job.
Yep.
What was that like?
Roller coaster of emotions. I really had to, I had a logical plan. Logically, it was the right thing to do. But it's really a big step, and you develop into a different person when you do something like that. So yeah, it's just a lot of back and forth in my mind of whether I'm doing the right thing or not. Luckily, also, I bought that F430 right before I quit my job, and that was a big motivator that, okay, I have to pay for this car, and I'm gonna quit my job, like, I'm gonna make this work.
What's funny is because I kind of did the same thing. Like as soon as I got fired from my job, like a month later, my Murcielago came in, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I should pay 400 grand for this. I don't have a job. And I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just buy the car. But the whole, it's almost funny because it pushes you to think that nothing's changed, right? Like
Yep.
it's like oh, it's just continuation rather than a reset. Tell me a little bit about this journey of like trading watches. Like how did it meet or not meet your expectation? What do you think going into it versus what really happened?
Well, when I bought my first watch, it was a pretty big commitment, and that was pretty much all the capital I had that I was gonna, use for watch trading. So it sat around. It was also unworn, so I couldn't even wear it. And I was kind of like, damn, I just have $5,500 tied up in this thing. Like, what the hell? But I didn't give up. And then I said, you know what? The only thing like I can do is to make another move. And I went and I bought 2 more watches because you can't stay stagnant with anything that you do. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. So, once that happened, I was like, all right, I'm just going to double down on it. And then things started working out. And that's when I kind of, from there, it was basically like, all right, I know what I have to do in order to move forward. And then, you guys came out with Fast Track, for instance. I was like, okay, I'm definitely doing it. And yeah, I wouldn't say that, I had my doubts in the beginning, not really, I wouldn't even say that there were doubts, to be honest. I think it was more just me not being experienced, and, trying to figure things out a little bit more. But other than that, honestly, I have had a really positive experience with it. Just like anything else, it has its challenges, but.
What was the hardest challenge starting?
Starting, probably buying the first watch, and
Is that a mental thing, or you mean just
mental for sure. Yeah, usually, like if you're not into watches, like spending $5,500 on something you can hold in your hand is kind of crazy.
So is it the mental concept of not understanding what it is and just being basically afraid to buy it?
Yeah, 100%.
Did you alleviate that fear, or how'd you get over it?
Yeah, I did. I kind of just, like I said, I just said, all right, like I'm gonna buy a couple more, and I heard, and I heard you say in the trainings, like, one watch isn't really, that's not what watch traders do. Like, you can't just bet on one watch. So I just, went for it, and tried to get over that fear. But the fear, excuse me, it doesn't really like end there. Like as you try to go up and up, like even if you're going from, for instance, like from a Breitling, and then you're going to an Hublot, or an Hublot to an AP, or an AP to a Patek, you have that fear every single time because you're putting so many eggs in one basket. But it's the only way you can advance.
Okay, so you had that fear. That was a mental fear more than anything else.
Yep.
You kind of got over it, meaning like you realized like, okay, this is gonna hold this value. I'll buy something. Tell me about how has that fear evolved over the last 2 years? Is there something that's scarier now? Because when you started playing with $5,000 watches, you're playing with like $150,000 watches. Right?
Yeah. Honestly, like the fear is I don't know if I want to say completely out the window, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Like I can't believe like where I was mentally beforehand and where I am now. It hasn't even been 2 years.
What was the biggest lesson about money that you learned from Watch Trading Academy or Exotic CarX?
You have to pay to play.
Tell me more about that.
If you want to, well, first, if you want to get more out of your investment, you have to keep investing. 2, there are more ways to grow your business than just investing in inventory. I think a lot of people, including myself at one point, forget that we're running businesses, and businesses don't just invest in inventory and then call it a day. You know, marketing, investing your time and effort into networking, you know, I could go on, but yeah.
Well, you got to take it seriously, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be creative.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about cars and how they've impacted your watch trading journey. I've argued that owning exotics really helps when it comes to selling watches. What have you found since you own now 3 exotics? How has that impacted your ability to sell or make deals?
Yeah, so I mean, my business is pretty much built around exotics, my watch trading business. I get probably 30% of my business from people who are into cars, whether it's from Instagram or local or whatever. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even know like where I would be without it, to be honest.
Okay, so how has it helped? Meaning, is there anything specific that it does? I mean, a person would argue having a Ferrari does not make you sell more watches. So what is it about the Ferrari or the Viper or the Lamborghini that has helped you?
Yeah, well, in short, it does. But it puts you in front of people who are serious clients, and you can build serious relationships with. You know, it's a marketing piece. Like people, like for instance, you know, yesterday I was showing a bunch of members that, you know, when I post my watches on Instagram, I could have the sickest watch like I've ever had, and it gets like 35 likes. I post a picture of my car, it's like 120, it goes on the popular page, people start following me. That's one piece. Second, really, it's gaining the retail clients. I mean, you build trust with people immediately when you have something in common, like a Ferrari or even a Viper, but really, you know, you have to move up. And since I just had the first post of the Murcielago, it's like already made a difference in a matter of days.
So you're using the cars mainly as a networking tool. It's allowing you to kind of meet a lot of people.
Yep.
Let's talk for a second, because I want to be respectful of time. You got to 100K, you quit your job, you started taking this very seriously, etc. What was the hardest mindset shift to go from 100 to 250? Because you did it fairly quickly, and I've always argued that knowledge is compounding, so it technically accelerates. You know, growth accelerates faster as you get good.
Yep.
One of my goals to bring more people to the 100K line is because that's like a good baseline to start. You know, you're kind of like proving this works. I'm making 100 grand a year doing this. Sky's the limit, right? Like, what can I push, or what do I want to be doing? So it's kind of the buying dollar where you're like, this is not a joke, you know?
Yep.
So what was the difference in going from 100 to 250? What was the shift in behavior, or shift in inventory, or shift in anything?
Yeah, I pretty much had to shift all my inventory. You know, I had to shift away from a lot of watches. I had to turn down a lot of deals and potential clients and all that stuff, in order to focus on what really is going to make me money. And also, you know, I didn't want this to become something that was going to consume my day, like every single day. So I had no choice but to just, you know, you have to, at some point, even though, you know, $1,000 here and there may sound good, you got to focus on the big picture. And I really think that was the main thing.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how your business evolved, meaning how much more volume are you doing from 100 to 250 versus are you doing more margins, more volume? What has been the specific strategy to be able to scale at that rate?
Yeah, I'm actually doing less volume. And I think just that, like, it's almost like when you're trying too hard and trying to do too much, you make less, if that makes sense, you know?
Make less per interaction per time.
Exactly. Yeah, and then, you know, that's a good point. So, you have to focus who you're spending your time on, right? So, like, if you're focusing on a guy who's going to beat you down 5 cents on a 1982 Datejust, but there's a guy over here who wants to buy, a Aquanaut from you. It's like, well, you could use your time on him and he'll buy another Aquanaut from you, or you can deal with this guy who's, trying to beat you down on everything you got.
So it was more of a being selective with clients,
Yeah.
or is there something about the change in inventory or anything else that took place?
Yeah, being selective with clients. Obviously, the exotics played a big part. I mean, yeah, I would say those two. And yeah, I mean, the change in inventory, really. Like, I just kept wanting to move my inventory up. And, I tell this to a lot of people too. Like, you create a baseline of what's the minimum you want to make per watch. And as my journey has evolved, I've kept growing that. So, I'm instead of, okay, I'm not going to do a deal or even get any inventory unless I know I can make at least $5,000 off of it. So that's a big thing too. And like, even if it's like, oh, I can make 3,500, I'm just probably not going to do it unless it's like not going to take up any capital at all. But even so, like, not really,
Okay. How much capital are you playing now?
Um,
Because I know things have evolved. You're trying to go to 500K club. You're already at 300. So tell me a little bit about how much more capital have you injected in the business?
yeah, I would say total, including credit, probably about 400 grand.
Did you take on any investors, or this is per?
Yep, I did.
Okay. How much of your inventory is investors?
About 150K.
And the rest is your money,
Yeah.
plus credit. You said.
Yeah, plus credit. But the credit is really, like, I don't really use credit on inventory. I really use it if, for instance, I have my capital maxed out and then someone says, hey, can you source me this watch? And I have like, 90K to do that with.
Use that in case.
Exactly,
you have to.
exactly.
So it's not always in the pot. It's
Yep,
more like
yep.
just as needed as you run out of cash.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of people watching this that are obviously in WTA. They're maybe not in exotic car hacks. They are individuals who obviously see the success stories. We have, like freaking like 20 awards to give out tomorrow, which is pretty
Damn.
incredible, right?
That's
Like,
amazing.
Right? Amazing, right?
Yeah.
I remember when we were doing 2 guys for 100K club a year, right? Now
Uh-huh.
we're doing like 8 a month,
Yeah.
It's crazy. So first off, it's crazy and it's fantastic to see people making more money. How has your life changed since you're richer?
It's night and day. I mean, I'm literally like.
Tell me, how
has
has your mindset changed? I'm just curious. Like, what are the things you look back at and laugh about your old self? You're like, wow, I was an idiot.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like, my view of the world is just a lot different now.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, external factors don't really faze me anymore. You know what I
Like,
mean?
what phased you before? I like this because I think that this is the most underlooked aspect of money. I always say, like, you don't understand money till you make money. Like, then when you make some money, you understand what bigger money looks like. Then you make bigger money, you're like, oh, I understand what the next stage look like, right?
Yep.
So it's so easy to go on Instagram and see someone talk about, oh, I made $10 million, right? And they're like, yeah, well, here's what I would do if I made $10 million. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't, right? Like,
Yep.
and the person you become when you make it is very different than anything else. I'm just curious, you go from a 9-to-5 guy who's working now part-time, making, twice what you were making. What is the mindset shift that's occurred, or your view of the world, like you said, that's changed since?
I would say what it all boils down to is you can't listen to outside noise. Like, you
Okay,
can't.
explain that.
Like, you can't listen to people who, at the end of the day, don't know what they're talking about, aren't experienced. Even if they do know what they're talking about, you kind of have to be selective because, like, I only listen to people who I trust, and even in that realm, like, what their area of expertise is. Like, I listen to you for this kind of stuff. Like, I listen to my wife for life stuff. I feel that she's a trustworthy person. But, like, even people in your family, like, that may have an opinion about something you're doing, like media,
Well,
whatever.
did you have a lot of resistance going into this? Were they, like, outside of, I know your wife's pretty supportive, but was there any outside perspectives or people trying to prevent you from quitting your job and saying you're an idiot?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that's like
Tell me about
my
that,
whole
'cause-
life. I feel like, you
Okay,
know.
that's-
I'm sure you can relate. Like every little thing you try, people are like, "What are you doing that for?"
But
You know?
I mean, nothing phases me anymore. I just, once you're on
Yeah.
the internet 20 years, you've seen it all. It's like someone's like, this guy's a giraffe. I'm like, okay, like cool story. Like,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
even matter. I don't
Yeah.
even respond anymore. So tell me about like, how was that dealing with the negativity of like, you shouldn't do this?
Yeah, I mean, at some point you just have to, tell people to fuck off, kind of, Or you don't have to actually tell them to fuck off, but in your head you have to say, okay, well, you can just let this go through one ear and out the other because what they say is not important. And if you, like, the number one thing is thinking logically. If you're thinking emotionally, you're letting that person who isn't an expert or experienced or whatever win and have an impact on your life for no reason. So, yeah, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do or overcome, because we grow up and we listen to our parents and we listen to blah, 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 or whatever. And that's what we're used to, but you have to really challenge those beliefs, challenge the people around you. And yeah, just really accept what you believe is right and what you understand, as long as it's, actual knowledge and not just you talking out your ass, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I'm just curious because, I see a lot of guys that are like about to do this and they're excited and they're like, oh, my friend said this is a scam or it's stupid. It's like, who's your friend? And it's like, oh, they're also broke. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Like, who cares what they think? But sometimes it's hard to get out of these mental states where even if people aren't where we want to be, they're still the centers of influences that, right? They're the people we hang out with. So they're the people that, regardless if they're poor or stupid or whatever, they're still those people
Yep.
that are telling us like to be cautious about something that they don't even understand. You know? So I was just curious if any of these things have prevented you or slowed you down along the way.
Not anymore.
But it did.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean, like I said, several things. Like, even before, when I was first getting my Viper, I got advice from someone close to me who gave me fucking terrible advice. And then and then I learned ECH and I was like, okay, this is like the exact opposite. And I was like, damn, well, this person leased cars their entire life, so why the fuck am I listening to them anyway about me getting this Viper,
Context really matters.
Yeah, it does.
In education, it really does. Sometimes we really don't pay attention to that when we're like doing things. We usually think like, oh, I trust this person, so I'm gonna ask them a question about something. But like, we ask relationship advice from people with terrible relationships. We ask money advice from people in our family who might be the richest in our family, but they're still broke as fuck. Or we will look at a person and be like, hey, what do you think about this car? And they're like, yeah, I don't like it. And it's like, boy, you drive a Honda. Why am I even like, why are we having this conversation? I'm just gonna leave. But a lot of times, like, we don't pay attention to that. So we're programmed to just stay in that mindset that like, I have to talk to someone about it. And we talk to the wrong person about it.
Yep. For sure.
And I've always said, like, when I wasn't rich, I used to talk to nobody because I didn't want to talk to anybody. Then I got a little bit rich, started talking to people, and the advice was always awkward. But as I got very rich and my friends were all also much richer, right? Then I was like, the conversation became much deeper and much like more in the right direction with differences in how we do things. And there was a learning opportunity in all of these because they were all super successful in the same space. You know? And I always said, like, whenever we had a problem, like even in a business where I was like, something's happening, I don't know how to fix this, They were like, well, have you looked at this or have you done that? And I'm like, oh no, I haven't. And it was like actual advice that's like, oh yeah, well, you made $600 million. So like you're looking at the same things and you're seeing something I don't see versus asking like your distant uncle who's, has a flower shop, what you're doing wrong with your Facebook ads. And it's like, I don't even run Facebook ads. And he's like, that's not good. You're like, you don't even have Facebook ads. Why am I talking to you? You don't even know what that is. So it's just such a different dynamic once you grow through that. So there's going to be students watching this, obviously. They want to just get to the 100K club. They're not even here yet. What's your advice for people that are joining us at Watch Trading Academy? They're new. They're seeing a story just like this come out every week now. Like new guy made 100K, new guy made 250. We're probably the longest standing program in history that like has had so much success over time where we grow year after year no matter what. So tell me, what piece of advice do you have directly to people who are coming into Watch Trading Academy, just like you, might say, well, this is a cute little thing. You took a year to get behind it. What can they do to not take that year? This one.
I would say trust the process. You're not gonna beat what's already knowledge within the community and within all the trainings. Trust, like, connect with people and trust people who have been there. I've been in your shoes. There are plenty of other people who have been in your shoes. You've been in their shoes. Maybe it was a long time ago, but still. So, you have to, again, this goes with blocking out the noise. Like, block out the noise. If someone isn't, like, at this level or higher, or even getting to this level, or, you see signs that they're, like, on the right path, then don't listen to them. That's pretty much it. And if you listen to yourself and you tell yourself something else and think that you're fighting against the grain and you're doing something different, why would you do that if it's proven time and time again to work? So that would be my advice.
So I'm just out of curiosity, because I think this is important. In Watch Trading Academy, people meet each other, etc. They do business. It's also a safe environment to learn. Is there a piece of advice you have for people in terms of how to use the community rather than just watch trading?
Yeah. I would just say get involved with anything you can. Whether it's, even coming, like, to the happy hour and meeting people in person, 'cause that's a real game changer. Doing, like, the actual, like...
What makes meeting people a game changer for you?
In general, like, I've been in sales for a long time, so putting a face to a name is just different than it is talking to someone over the phone. And it's just a different type of connection. Human connection is pretty important, especially when you're building trust with others. I guess that's it.
Okay. So, I've always said a handshake goes a long way, right?
Yep.
A lot further than a hello on Zoom or a text message.
Yeah.
So, cool. Well, listen, guys, you've heard it right here. Alex Smith, our latest 250K club member. In order to join these groups, it's really simple. You either make $100,000 in a rolling 12-month, or then can prove you made a rolling $250,000, $500K, and even $1 million. We have students in each of these categories, and so I always pose the question after each and every interview. If he did it, why not you, and who will be next? We'll catch you next time, and a big thank you to Alec again for joining us today on this 250K Club interview.